Okay, so get this right. We are diving deep, deep into like the world of mind control today with excerpts from Banned Mind Control Techniques Unleashed.
Cool.
Now, before anyone starts picturing like some crazy sci-fi thing, we're going to break these techniques down.
Right.
In a way that like you could actually use.
Yeah, it's like we're giving you a sixth sense almost for how persuasion and manipulation, even brainwashing, like how they actually work.
Yeah, so the book, it basically outlines 5 main types.
Right.
So we've got brainwashing, hypnosis, manipulation, persuasion, and deception.
And while that term mind control, it might sound a little bit, you know,
Out there,
yeah, like something out of a comic book. The reality is it's a lot more subtle, you know? Often it plays out just in our everyday lives.
So no one's like implanting microchips in our brains?
Not quite, no. Let's start with brainwashing, for example.
Okay.
So the source kind of paints this picture of isolation, dependency, and the systematic breakdown of someone's identity.
Right, so you're talking like cults,
hostage situations, those sorts of things. Thankfully, these are very extreme and rare cases.
But you know what? The book did mention a couple court cases.
Okay.
That really got me thinking about this.
Yeah.
Patty Hearst and Lee Boyd Malvo.
Right.
Both of them claimed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, both claimed that they were brainwashed. And it sparked this huge debate.
Yeah, I mean, these cases, they really force us to grapple with this idea of free will versus coercion, you know? Like, can someone truly be manipulated to the point where they're not responsible for their own actions?
Right.
It's a slippery slope.
It is.
Legally and ethically, for sure.
And it makes you think about, like, the power dynamics.
Yeah.
Even in our own lives.
Right.
Like, even if it's not as extreme as these cases.
Right.
Recognizing those early signs of manipulation could be super crucial.
Absolutely. I think awareness is key there.
Yeah.
And speaking of awareness, maybe we should shift gears a little bit, talk about a technique that's often misunderstood.
Okay.
Hypnosis.
Okay.
Forget those swinging pocket watches and the whole stage show thing.
Right. It's not all, you know, making people cluck like a chicken.
Exactly. Exactly.
The source talks about 3 stages of hypnosis.
Okay.
So there's induction, suggestion, and susceptibility.
Induction basically involves relaxation and this kind of heightened state of suggestibility.
Right.
But the big question here, right,
is
whether it's an actual altered state of consciousness
okay.
or more of just like a role-playing scenario.
Interesting.
The source actually calls it the altered state versus role-playing debate.
So are we talking about like tapping into the subconscious or is it more just responding to suggestions?
Yeah.
But in a more focused way?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the research is actually, it's surprisingly divided.
Really?
Yeah. So some studies point to these physiological changes during hypnosis, while others suggest that it's really more about just imagination and expectation, you know?
That's so interesting because it's like, regardless of how it actually works, hypnosis has potential benefits.
Oh, yeah.
Beyond just entertainment, right?
Absolutely.
The source mentions pain management, addiction treatment.
Wow.
Even boosting creativity.
Yeah. It's incredible to think that something that's so often, you know, relegated to these like cheesy magic shows.
I know, right?
Can have these very real practical applications in medicine and beyond. Yeah.
Okay. So no promises of becoming a world-renowned artist.
Right.
Through hypnosis or anything.
Not yet, at least.
But it does make you wonder, like, could anyone be hypnotized?
Right.
Or are some people just more susceptible?
That's where personality comes in. The source actually points to dissociators.
Dissociators.
Yeah, these are people who can kind of mentally check out or disconnect, right?
Right.
And then fantasizers, those who can get very easily absorbed in imagination as being potentially more receptive.
So if you spent your childhood, like, lost in daydreams, you might be more susceptible to a hypnotist.
Perhaps.
That's wild.
But, you know, it's crucial to remember that the ethical considerations here are paramount in any discussion of hypnosis.
Of course.
Informed consent and the qualifications of the practitioner are absolutely essential.
It's your mind at the end of the day.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this leads us to, I think, an intriguing question.
Okay.
If it was presented ethically and with a very clear purpose, would you be open to exploring hypnosis?
It's definitely something to ponder.
Yeah.
As I think we move into this kind of murkier territory of manipulation and deception.
Yeah.
These are the tactics that really operate on a much more subconscious level, I think. Okay, so we are back. And things might maybe a little too real as we dive into both manipulation and deception.
Yeah.
These are like the sneakier siblings, right?
Yeah.
In the world of mind control.
While brainwashing and hypnosis kind of feel like something out of a movie,
Right.
I think manipulation and deception are things that are happening all around us.
Yeah.
Literally every day.
It's like they're hiding in plain sight.
They really are.
You had mentioned that banned mind control techniques unveiled. It calls this like psychological sleight of hand.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
So it's the art of creating this illusion, right?
Yeah.
And often by preying on vulnerabilities to kind of nudge someone towards a desired outcome,
Right.
without them ever really realizing that they've been played, you know?
And here's the thing too, it's not always like some evil puppet master pulling the strings, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Sometimes it's just,
Sometimes it's uncomfortable.
people falling back on what's worked for them.
Right, exactly.
Even if they're not intentionally like trying to manipulate the situation.
Exactly. But I think knowing the techniques can help you to spot them.
Okay.
Regardless of the intent.
Okay.
Right? So we're talking lying, emotional blackmail, even just conveniently leaving out information to paint a certain picture.
The book gave an example about like a manipulative coworker.
Oh, yeah.
Always
playing the victim.
The victim. Yeah. And like stirring up all this drama.
Right.
And it's like they thrive on chaos.
Yeah.
And then somehow you end up feeling responsible for fixing it.
That's the goal, right? It's like by constantly putting you on the defensive, making you feel guilty or sorry for them.
Right.
They manipulate you into doing what they want.
Wow.
Classic emotional manipulation.
So how do we like protect ourselves from these like emotional puppeteers?
I would say pay attention to patterns. Do their stories have holes in them? Do they deflect blame? Do you constantly feel responsible for their emotion? These are all red flags that someone might be more interested in getting their way than having a genuine connection.
Those are really good points.
Yeah.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about persuasion.
Sure.
Persuasion, I feel like it gets a bad rap.
It does. It does.
But it's not always a negative thing.
Right.
Like if I'm trying to get my kids to, clean up their rooms.
Yeah.
That's persuasion.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, persuasion is really just communication.
Okay.
With an aim.
Okay.
Every time you convince a friend to watch your favorite movie.
Right.
Or try a new restaurant.
That's persuasion.
That's persuasion.
I like it.
You're using persuasion.
Yeah.
And as banned mind control techniques unveiled points out, it all comes down to free will. With persuasion, you're presenting information, you're appealing to logic or emotion.
Right.
But ultimately, the other person is deciding it's not coercive.
I like that. Yeah.
And the source dives into some pretty fascinating weapons of influence.
Okay.
Which is a term coined by Robert Cialdini.
Okay.
He's a psychologist, kind of the godfather of persuasion, if you will.
I like it. Weapons of influence, that sounds kind of intense.
It does. It does.
Like, tell me more.
So think about things like reciprocity.
Okay.
Right? Like if someone does you a favor.
Yeah.
You're more likely to do a favor for them.
Right.
Or scarcity. That like limited edition item suddenly becomes way more desirable.
100%.
Right.
You mention it.
It's like all those marketing tactics that get used all the time. Like suddenly I need those shoes.
Right.
Even though I have a closet full.
Exactly. It's
so true.
And there's more.
Okay.
So Cialdini also talks about authority.
Okay.
Like our tendency to trust experts.
Right.
And social proof. We're way more likely to do something if everyone else is doing it right.
It's true.
These are powerful, powerful tools that are influencing our behavior every day.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me how much we're influenced by these things and we don't even realize it. Absolutely. These unconscious biases.
It's conscious, yeah.
But here's the thing, like now that we are aware of these tactics, can we use them for good?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
I love that. I think understanding these weapons of influence isn't just about protecting yourself from them.
Right.
It's about using them ethically.
I love it.
To communicate more effectively, build stronger relationships.
Right.
And maybe even just get your point across a little better.
Yeah. 100%. All right, so we're back again. And we've covered, like we've talked about brainwashing, hypnosis, manipulation, even like the power of persuasion. But there's one final piece, I think, to our little mind control puzzle here.
Yeah.
And that is deception.
Yes.
And banned mind control techniques unleashed, like, they don't hold back.
No, they don't.
When it comes to talking about deception.
It's a fitting end, I think, to our deep dive, because deception is perhaps the most pervasive form of mind control, right?
Right.
We encounter it daily,
Totally.
often without even realizing it.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
If you know, like, where to look, right?
Yeah, it is.
But the source points out that it's not always just about, like, flat out lying. It can be
it's more subtle.
way more subtle than that.
Absolutely.
So what do you mean by that?
So deception can involve, like, twisting the facts a little bit.
Okay.
Omitting really crucial information.
Right.
Even just presenting yourself as someone that you're not.
Right.
To gain some kind of advantage in a situation.
So it's about, like, controlling the narrative almost,
It's
right? Like shaping how someone
100%.
perceives
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
To fit whatever your agenda is.
Yeah, you're framing the picture, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of sinister.
It can be. It can be.
When you really think about it.
And the source actually breaks it down into, like, different, almost like shades of dishonesty.
Okay.
You know, you have your outright fabrication, of course, but then there are things like equivocation, which is using really vague language to kind of sidestep actually telling the truth.
It's like the politician answer.
Exactly.
It's like saying a lot without saying anything at all.
Exactly. You're not really lying.
Right.
But you're definitely not telling the truth.
Right.
And then there's concealment, which is strategically hiding information that might, reveal a less favorable version of events. So it's really...
So it's like a spectrum.
It's a spectrum.
Almost, right?
Yes.
Of
From white lies
to
these very elaborate schemes of deceit.
Right, but it all hinges on one thing.
Trust.
100%.
Like, for deception to work at all.
The target has to believe the deceiver.
Right.
That's what makes it so potent and potentially very devastating.
Especially in, like, personal relationships.
Especially, because that betrayal of trust can be incredibly damaging.
And it makes you question everything.
Right, exactly.
Going forward.
The source even talks about how deception can, like, poison relationships, like breeding this suspicion and resentment.
Right.
That can be really hard to overcome. Totally. So how do we spot a deceiver?
Yeah.
Are there telltale signs, giveaways that someone's not being entirely truthful with us?
It's not always easy, and in fact, the source actually debunks some common myths about detecting lies.
Like what?
Like avoiding eye contact or fidgeting. Those can just be signs of nervousness, not necessarily deception.
So those, like, poker-faced, pros in the movies
totally
might be onto something.
They might be.
Just because someone looks you in the eye doesn't mean they're telling the truth.
Not at all. In fact, I would say that skilled deceivers are masters of disguise. Right. They can appear very calm, confident, even when they're spinning, this web of lies.
Wow.
So I think it's about paying attention to inconsistencies, listening to your gut feeling, noticing when something seems off, even if you can't quite put your finger on it.
Yeah, it's like you become almost like an amateur detective in your own life, right?
Yes.
Always looking for clues.
100%. And I think banned mind control techniques unleashed really stresses the importance of critical thinking. Questioning your assumptions and challenging information, even when it's coming from someone that you trust. Which
kind of, I think, brings us back to the core theme of this whole deep dive.
Yeah, what's that?
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. I love it.
By understanding these techniques, recognizing the tactics of manipulation and persuasion and deception.
Absolutely.
You're equipping yourself with the tools to navigate, what can be
a very tricky world.
A very tricky world.
Where influence is everywhere.
Yes. And it's not about becoming, like, cynical. Or distrustful of everyone.
Exactly. No one wants to walk around being completely paranoid.
Right. But just, like, being informed.
It's about being informed.
And discerning.
Yes. Discerning. Being able to use your judgment.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And it's about, at the end of the day, taking ownership.
100%.
of your thoughts and your beliefs.
Yes.
And ultimately your choices.
Your voices, exactly. Yeah.
That's so good. You've given us so much to think about.
It's been such a pleasure kind of unpacking these concepts with you.
Likewise.
And just remember, right?
Yeah.
Your mind is your most valuable asset.
Hmm.
Guard it well.
Love it.
And always stay curious.
That is a wrap on this deep dive into the world of mind control.
So fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
For another fascinating exploration.